A $1.2 billion secret weapons deal explodes mid-air. Ukraine strikes. In a single blinding moment, months of covert planning and international intrigue are reduced to burning debris scattered across the night sky. The Carpathian sky lit up before dawn. A silent flash followed by a thunderous roar that echoed for miles. The mountains, usually shrouded in darkness, were illuminated as if by a second sunrise. Villagers in western Ukraine and eastern Slovakia watched in shock as a massive fireball plummeted from the sky, turning the quiet countryside into a front-row seat to history. Eyewitnesses would later describe the sight as both terrifying and awe-inspiring. It wasn't a meteor, it was a Russian Ilyushin Il-76 military transport jet, flying a clandestine route with its transponder off, hoping to slip through undetected. But someone, somewhere, was watching every move. On board was a secret arsenal, the result of a desperate pact between North Korea and Russia. Crates packed with artillery shells and ballistic missiles, all destined for the front lines of the war in Ukraine. This was a shipment meant to change the balance of power. The explosion was a precision strike, not an accident. It was the result of careful intelligence, coordination, and a message sent loud and clear. For the Kremlin and Pyongyang, it was a catastrophic failure. For Ukraine, a stunning victory in a shadow war of satellites and spies. The balance of power had shifted, if only for a moment. Debris rained over a wide forested area, some pieces still smoldering hours later. Emergency crews combed the woods, searching for clues and recovering what little remained. Russian state media blamed a technical malfunction, but the truth was already spreading through intelligence channels, whispered in corridors of power across continents. The Il-76, call sign Vostok 7, had taken off from near Moscow, its real mission to deliver weapons Moscow believed would turn the tide of war. The stakes had never been higher. Instead, it became a billion-dollar bonfire in the sky. A spectacular failure broadcast to the world. This single event ripped the veil off a covert military alliance months in the making, exposing secrets that both Moscow and Pyongyang had fought to keep hidden. Kyiv's message was clear. No secret is safe. No illicit shipment is beyond reach. The world was watching, and Ukraine had just raised the stakes. The war in Ukraine had just entered a new, more dangerous phase. With every secret flight, every intercepted message, the shadow war grows darker, and the consequences, more explosive. The seeds of the doomed flight were sown months earlier, not in a hangar, nor on a battlefield, but in the shadowy corridors of power where strategy and survival intersect. It was in the gilded halls of the Vostochny Cosmodrome, Russia's remote and secretive spaceport, that the first moves were made. There, Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong Un sealed a pact born not of trust, but of mutual desperation and shared isolation from the world stage. Russia, bogged down in a grinding war in Ukraine, was burning through ammunition at an unsustainable rate. Its once mighty military industry was crippled by relentless Western sanctions, leaving Putin searching for new sources of support. Kim, ruling over a starved and isolated North Korea, saw a rare opportunity. He possessed vast stockpiles of Soviet-era munitions, exactly what Russia's battered army needed to keep fighting. In exchange for his arsenal, Putin offered Kim not just cash, but also advanced military technology, food aid, and crucial diplomatic cover on the world stage. The deal, worth over $1.2 billion, was more than a transaction. It was a lifeline for both leaders, a chance to defy their isolation and strengthen their grip on power. This secretive alliance flagrantly violated multiple United Nations Security Council resolutions. But for Kim and Putin, international law was a minor obstacle, easily brushed aside in pursuit of survival. The alliance was designed to operate in the shadows, relying on complex logistics, covert shipments, and false paperwork to obscure the true origins of the weapons. Both sides knew the risks. Exposure could trigger global condemnation, harsher sanctions, and even further isolation. Yet the stakes only made them more determined. For Kim and Putin, it was a high-stakes gamble. The rewards, military strength, economic relief, and political survival seemed worth the risk. Putin believed he could outmaneuver Western intelligence agencies, while Kim saw a path to finally break his country's economic isolation and gain new leverage. But neither leader realized just how closely they were being watched, as Western eyes tracked every move, waiting for the alliance to make a fatal mistake. Ukraine's discovery of the arms pipeline was a triumph of modern intelligence. It began with satellite imagery of unusual activity at North Korean ports, munitions loaded onto ghost ships that went dark at sea. Allied intelligence shared these clues with Ukraine, who cross-referenced them with intercepted communications. Ships left North Korea for Russian ports, using false flags and forged manifests. The real breakthrough came from spy satellites tracking containers from Rayson to a Russian railhead, and informants inside Russia's logistics network. The most sensitive weapons were separated for airlift, not rail. Ukraine built a complete picture: weapons, routes, transfer points, and methods of deception. When intelligence confirmed a high-value shipment was being prepped for airlift near Moscow, the trap was set. The North Korean weapons journey was a global shell game of deception. Packed in unmarked containers, the munitions traveled by rail to the port of Rason, then onto aging cargo ships with false manifests and disabled transponders. Ships changed flags mid-voyage, performed ship-to-ship transfers, and docked at secluded Russian ports. Containers were offloaded under military guard, mixed with legitimate cargo, and sent by train across Russia. For the most critical assets, ballistic missiles, Russia used military airlift. After arriving by sea, these weapons were flown from airbases near Moscow on transport planes like the Il-76. Flights operated under military secrecy, flying indirect routes and entering Ukrainian airspace only at the last moment. This final audacious leg gave Ukraine its chance to strike. The explosion over the Carpathians instantly transformed a covert arrangement into a glaring international incident. The destruction of the Il-76 exposed the depth of the Russia-North Korea military alliance. Moscow and Pyongyang scrambled to control the narrative, but the evidence was undeniable. World powers, already alarmed, now had concrete proof of UN sanctions violations. The US and allies condemned the trade, calling for an emergency UN Security Council session, forcing Russia to defend itself while holding a veto. The fallout rattled Asia, with South Korea and Japan alarmed by Pyongyang's gains. China, North Korea's benefactor, was forced into an awkward diplomatic position. For Ukraine, it was a strategic and diplomatic victory, reframing its fight as a frontline battle against authoritarian coalitions. Moscow and Pyongyang responded with a mix of denial and calculated obfuscation, each side scrambling to control the narrative as the world's attention intensified. The Kremlin quickly blamed a technical failure, carefully omitting any mention of the plane's true mission or the sensitive cargo it was carrying. Russian state media floated theories of sabotage and tragic accident, but behind closed doors, the loss triggered a wave of fury and panic among top officials. Russia had lost not just a billion-dollar asset, but a critical supply line. Its military logistics were now exposed as dangerously vulnerable to outside threats. North Korea's official silence spoke volumes, signaling deep panic and internal alarm. The deal's failure was a personal humiliation for Kim Jong Un and his regime. Behind the scenes, blame and paranoia spread rapidly. Russian commanders suspected leaks, infiltration, or even advanced technological vulnerabilities. Putin was reportedly enraged, not only at the material loss but at the public embarrassment and the blow to Russia's reputation on the world stage. The strike made Russia appear weak and incompetent, shaking confidence within its own ranks and among its allies. For Pyongyang, the exposure risked not only new international sanctions, but also strained the fragile trust with Moscow, threatening future cooperation. The North Koreans had delivered their end of the bargain. It was Russia that failed to secure the transport, leaving both sides vulnerable. In the aftermath, both regimes were forced to urgently reassess their covert partnership, questioning how much they could truly rely on each other moving forward. The Il-76's destruction triggered a swift international response. The US and EU announced new sanctions, targeting the entire logistical network behind the arms deal. Obscure shipping companies, Russian port authorities, and international banks faced scrutiny. China, while not directly involved, was pressured to halt support for Russia and North Korea. At the UN, China walked a diplomatic tightrope, calling for de-escalation but blocking direct condemnation. The crash site yielded valuable intelligence on North Korean weaponry. Reports suggested Iran may have provided technical assistance, highlighting the interconnected authoritarian axis. The diplomatic atmosphere soured, Trust between the West and Russia evaporated. Neutral countries saw the reckless lengths Russia would go, making neutrality harder to justify. The fiery demise of the Il-76 offers a lesson. In modern war, intelligence and precision trump brute force. The operation was won by analysts, satellites, and a single missile, not tanks or trenches. Ukraine and its allies proved even superpowers' secrets can be exposed. Operation Silent Arrow showed the old playbook of covert arms deals is obsolete. The risk of exposure is now exponentially higher. For Russia, the loss was both material and psychological. Supply lines are no longer safe. The strike shifted perceptions. Ukraine is not just defending, but innovating and taking the fight to the enemy. In the dark skies over the Carpathians, a secret deal was consumed by fire, and a new reality of modern warfare was revealed.